You're listening to Who's Hot, the UKOCR podcast where Wil Chung, along with elite racers Becky, Neal, Chris Shipley, and the occasional special guest, discuss the UKOCR series and other important races in the OCR calendar to find out who's hot.
Hello, and thank you for downloading the latest Who's Hot podcast. My name is Wil Chung. I am the host, and we are here to preview Nuclear Challenge Cup, the third race in the UKOCR series, which is Sunday, the 12th of May. As always, I've got my two UKOCR elite races. We've got Becky, Neal. Hi, Becky.
Hi, everybody. Nice to see you all.
And we've got Chris Shipley. Hi, Chris. How are you doing?
Hello, here I am. I'm back with everyone.
Always. And we have a special guest. We have James Burton, who is acting race director for Nuclear Challenge Cup. Hi, James. Welcome.
Hello, back again. Good to see you all.
We just can't get rid of him, can we?
We try, but he keeps coming back.
It just keeps coming back like a bad boomerang.
No, that's a good boomerang, surely.
No, none of us like James. We've said it before. We dislike him.
No, you don't. That's why you've got me on your fridge, Chris. Right?
No, you've actually moved, James. You're actually in front of the treadmill with a few other people.
Oh, that motivation.
Yeah, that's it. In fact, I've got a picture of James now instead.
Okay.
Anyway, let's talk about James. We'll talk about James in a minute. We'll let James talk a bit more. Nuclear Challenge Cup. As a member of Nuclear Phoenix, Becky, let's talk about Nuclear for those that may have not raced Nuclear before. Tell us what it's like.
Yeah, so Nuclear Races is run on basically a farm that's owned by James Parrish. He's the whole race director of Nuclear Races. And they have lots of events throughout the year, so different race weekends throughout the year. So this is the first one, and this is kind of like the biggest one, Nuclear Rush weekend. So the main race, which thousands of people do, is called Nuclear Rush. And then we add a slightly extra competitive element to it, and including some extra obstacles and rules and everything. And that's called Nuclear Challenge Cup, which happens at the same sort of time. So like the start of the day of Nuclear Rush. And we'll talk about that in a bit more detail today. But as well as that, there's another race called Nuclear Oblivion Extreme, which is an ultra race, basically. So a furthest, fastest kind of race where you do as many 12K laps as you can in 8.5 hours. There's a 7K race as well if you're starting out and you want to do something a bit shorter, because Nuclear Rush is normally about 12K. There's also actually a family wave and also a kids wave. It's called Rookies. And that's a bit shorter as well, and the parents can sort of go alongside and watch the kids race. And then there's another race which is kind of more similar to High Rocks but outside, and that's called Nuclear Fit. So this race is like on the farm. It means that they have the land all year round, unlike some of the other races like Spartan, which go to event sites, set up the obstacles for a few days, run the event, and then go somewhere else. So that means that this race has like some permanent obstacles, and it means the structures are pretty solid. You know, they're maintained throughout the year, and they are always developing them. They've got some people that work in the workshop, always coming up with new ideas. They get the fans, the regulars, to vote on some of their ideas and name the obstacles on Facebook and things like that as well. So it's a really like strong community of obstacle course races, including people who are doing it for the first time. And I think it's really good for spectators too, because there's a big event village, like lots of music, like an MC that helps with the warm-up and stuff. We've got some podiums, of course, for Challenge Cup as well. And there's like a tractor that you can get on, like a bus, and it will take you from the start finish area across the farm to the part of the race which has got like a lake zone, where the death slide is, which is often voted the best obstacle in obstacles racing each year sometimes. And that's a really good place to watch some of the water-based obstacles. So I think it's just a really good all-round event, which has been kind of recognized by the community in lots of different ways. And it's nice to have like a kind of competitive element within that as well.
Award-winning from last year's UKOCR Awards too. I seem to remember. Brilliant
Series race as well, wasn't it? In the awards as well as Deaf Side. Yeah.
Yeah, they've certainly won their fair share of awards over the years. I think
And the hashtag is Love Mud, which gives you a bit of a clue as to what it's like there. There's a certain obstacle called Ebenezer, and we'll talk about whether Ebenezer's in it. But that is massive mud pit, and because it's such a popular race and it runs over 2 days, it does get very churned up. This is like farmers' fields that thousands of people are running through. So that's definitely a strong identity for this race. But it's really nice because you get like a hot wash, like a shower, an outdoor shower right up at the finish line, and some changing tents with your bags. Like the bag drops right next to the changing tents, and often got some heaters in there and hot squash at the finish too. So they've thought about that with Project Warm, keeping you cozy. One time they even had a hot water slide.
It did. God knows the heating bill on that one.
I hear that there's less water this year.
James, before we start talking about Challenge Cup as a UKOCR race, let's just talk about it's a national trials race. Would you like to talk about that and kind of what's involved for the elites and the age groups there?
Yeah, certainly. So most competitive events have an element of qualification opportunity. That is where you can qualify for the Euros or the Worlds, and there's set criteria. We're able to do that at a number of events. One, to promote the event, and then two, because we technically have infinite spots that we can award to our racers to compete at those events. There is a slight difference to some events where we can only select a certain amount of athletes for spots. So in the 15K race at the World Championships, we can only select 5 males and 5 females. It was the same actually in the 3K, and that's why we had some national trials previously in the 3K. So for the 15K, we are selecting our final spots. Actually, not our final spots, but we're selecting 3 spots from Challenge Cup. So one was selected from the British Champs last year. So Fede and Dan have the option. Dan Titcombe have the option of competing in the World Champs in the elite race. The top 3 overall, if they're British, will get the opportunity to compete in Costa Rica in the elite team. So a bit of pride on the line in that side. It's not just becoming top 3 here, top 3 Brits, essentially. You can also go and represent your country in the elite race at the World Champs as well.
It's a nice one to have, because it kind of gives you that idea of where you stack up in the UK sometimes. And when you're quite competitive like all of us are here, it really does make you want to turn up and do well at that event. It just makes you feel good about how your position comes. So yeah, that's good.
Yeah, very rewarding. And I think sometimes, some of the feedback we've had from some of the athletes is that it's useful to have a head-to-head race to make those decisions for the international teams. So, having a national trials event that funnels all the athletes against each other almost is a pretty fair way to do that.
Yeah. And it's also a qualification opportunity for the Euro Champs and the World. So the World Champs in August, but actually the Euros in 2025. So it's a bit odd because the Euro this year hasn't happened yet, but because you essentially have to sign up by May 10th for the Euros this year, qualification opens for the second year this weekend, essentially. So people want to claim their Euros 2025 spot, they can do it. And it's actually a top 10 in male or female age groups. There is a 50% rule, so there has to be at least 20 in an age group for top 10 to qualify. So it's quite unlikely. But the top 3 overall, because it's a national trial, qualify regardless of 50% rule. So get there, get qualified.
Yeah, definitely makes planning your next year easier. Sort
of. Portugal next year as well, the Euro champs. So another.
Is it? How do you know that?
It has been announced. I read it out on a group, and then it was like, "Has that been announced yet?" And I had to check.
It was announced before we knew this year.
Yeah, so it has already been announced. Portugal.
I'm so bad at knowing what's coming wherever, but that's brilliant. Portugal.
I've never been to Portugal.
Neither have I.
Will, you're joining us. Portugal's a brilliant country.
Maybe you need media partner. Maybe maybe I do that. James, thank you very much for that. And also, you're here as race director of Nuclear Challenge Cup. So you have all the inside knowledge of obstacles, rules, what's in, what's out, what are the special parts for Challenge Cup and for the UKOCR series. So I'm going to leave it basically back open to you, especially also to Becky, as someone who is a Nuclear Phoenix team member, and also Chris, Elite Racer. I'll just let you guys talk about obstacles.
Well,
Yeah,
I want to
maybe I
know
can
exactly
give
what's
a
happening.
summary of how it works from a Challenge Cup perspective, then we can dive into some of the obstacles. So I'm working with Laura Roberts. So Laura Roberts was the race director last year. I'm kind of working in partnership with her. So she's actually setting up a lot of the obstacles, and I'm probably just there as a reiner in sometimes, because she is such a good obstacler.
Mm-hmm.
Her first thing is to absolutely create these amazing obstacle challenges, and we've got to get that balance, and it's going to be great to see kind of some of the things that she's coming up with, and then we can work together to finalize. There's essentially Nuclear Rush, as Becky said, which are the standard obstacles, and there's a lot of obstacles. So this Nuclear, probably more than any other event, tires you out by the sheer amount of obstacles on course. I think it's probably about 45 Nuclear Rush obstacles, and then there are an additional 9 to 10 obstacles which are Challenge Cup specific. So those obstacles are only in the Challenge Cup race and are more technical and harder to complete, essentially. So the way to differentiate the Nuclear Rush obstacles are multi-attempt. Every single obstacle is multi-attempt. You can do it as many times as you want. If you can't do it, it's 30 burpees. So pretty sizable penalty. All the single attempt Challenge Cup obstacles, there is a running penalty, which may involve bear crawling, may involve a carry. So you're failing an obstacle, you're still getting some serious penalties as a result.
So single attempt, that's pretty intense. That's good practice for European Championships, because there will be some single attempt obstacles in there.
Yeah, and it's having that balance. So one thing for any competitive racers that are going, we had to get the balance between how the race is effectively marshaled and officiated, because on a lot of because there's so many obstacles, a lot of the Nuclear obstacles will be effectively officiated by marshals that aren't necessarily trained from an officiating perspective in quite the same way as British obstacle sport technical officials. So that's why really simple rules, they're all outlined in the rule book, but you can have as many attempts as you want, so not having to judge, is that your attempt, is it your attempt, and then if you fail it, you get your burpees done. There are a few in there that could catch a few people out. There's Kingfisher, which is multi-attempt, but that's kind of monkey bars over some water. There is, trying to think what else.
Spinning monkeys is a challenging one sometimes when it's been raining. That's a single attempt one.
Yeah, so that's a Challenge Cup obstacle. That's single attempt.
Oh, sorry.
So one attempt. You've got a Toros rig. So Toros has got a partnership with Nuclear Races now. So that will be on the course. Anyone did the UKOCR 3K would have experienced some of what that might have been like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we seem to be seeing Toros grips more and more frequently in a lot of the British series races, and it's really good because we've all had our hands on them attachments, and they're really, really grippy even in the mud. So that should be a good rig, a good challenging rig that should test the grip strength, even if they are muddy, which it will be.
Yeah. And we've got one of my favourite obstacles is a balance beam.
The Nuclear balance beam.
Specifically, I like all balance beams. I think I'm good at them.
You know, the Nuclear balance beam is not an easy balance beam.
Is it going to be catching some people out?
I would put that balance beam up as being one of the hardest balance beams in the world.
It's got the bit that tips as well, hasn't it? So it has different bits of different heights. If you've never been on it before, it's often it's after you've been. Well, we'll see where it is on this one. Is it after the wet bit?
It's usually in a blizzard of wind, isn't it?
Yes, it was when it's very exposed. And I find I really have to
magic. Yeah, it comes after power plunge.
Yeah, so you're
totally
totally
magic
wet.
carpet.
Yeah, so
and
it's in the
then
same
balance.
spot. The wind seems to blow over on that field quite well, doesn't it?
And so there's little ledges that are a bit higher, and then you have to step from one beam to another beam, so don't go on the floor in between the beams. And then there's a bit with a pivot on it, and it's made of wood, and it's quite narrow, so it can be very slippy. And the single attempt on that length of obstacle is people can get caught out at the very end.
And I remember
that's
when I
what
ran with
people-
you guys, at the 3K Wild Forest, Eddie doesn't like balance beam, does she? And she was saying how it's easy doing it, and it's so easy, but actually in competition, when you've got kind of your race brain, it's just so different, isn't it? So difficult and challenging.
We did some training. I chased her on it. She's feeling strong now.
It's quite a good one as well, because Challenge Cup requires normally quite a heavy lug on your shoe.
Yeah.
That kind of plays quite a big part in that obstacle itself, because heavy lugs make a difference on balance beams. So
make it harder, you mean?
Yeah. So shoe choice is a big step on that one.
My top tip for balance beam: don't overthink. You're just walking in a straight line. Everyone can walk in a straight line.
Yeah.
But it gets in your head, doesn't it?
I like to think I'm up high. Yeah.
The movement. These to be fair aren't too high, but it's surprising the athletes that fall this. When I won Challenge Cup, it was because people were failing the balance beam, basically.
I've failed it many times. Yeah, that particular one. I don't know what it is. It is. I'm usually quite good at balance, but that one, we could speak all day about this balance beam.
Yeah.
But it really that's how important, because this is one of those sort of obstacles in the race that can gain so many positions, and
Got a couple
in Euros, there's a couple of balance obstacles, including slackline, but not as long as this.
We then go into, after balance beam, there's a couple more single attempts. Actually, you go into what people know as the Nuclear Wild Forest, which is the training center area. For Nuclear Rush, they utilize some of the obstacles in the race. So you've got 2 griller bar sections, which will have various attachments that you need to complete. You then go into the low rig, which I think is going to be one of the harder obstacles, as it always is, the low rig. We are looking, and it's not guaranteed yet for the low rig, but we're looking at how we can reward people to get halfway across. So if you get the whole way across, you can go and you don't get any penalty. But I think it's quite nice with something like the low rig that if you've actually had a solid attempt, you've got quite far, maybe do half the penalty or something like that. We're just working through if we can officiate it in the right way.
Keeps the integrity quite good there as well, because it means that people do have a genuine attempt here. We've seen before in other races, not nuclear, but other races, when the obstacle is that difficult that sometimes the penalty becomes the better option. So having it more appealing to take half a route, not half a route, appealing to take a full go at it and be rewarded for that. That's good, like that.
Yeah. Then we've got rope climb, and this is the section where it's going to really test your grip, and then you're going into, I think it's high rig, and we haven't kind of got the exact configuration on that, but looking at relatively straightforward high rig compared to some of the other obstacles. And then the Stairway to Heaven, which we all know can catch people out, and then coat hanger, I believe, is the final single attempt from memory. You're then going into the final section, a lot more obstacles, but I think one thing to call out is the Travelator, I think, as the final obstacle in this course. And last year it made a real difference to the race, with unfortunately people having to give in their bib, and which is part of why we're making the change in terms of the burpees. But we want, again, to be a sizable penalty for failing, but we also want these races to be competitive and everyone to be finishing. No one wants to have a did not complete or a DNF in their race, and it is around anyone who's competitive being able to enjoy this race, whether they're first or last. Essentially, I think that's kind of a really important message to grow the competitive racing community in the UK. It's not going to be slow though, again, the Travelator, so get your running shoes on, get your technique.
If anyone hasn't done the Travelator, it was my first time on the Travelator last year, and I tell you what, that catches you out, doesn't it? you think you got to run hell for leather, but there is a technique to it, and you got to kind of look up, look straight forward, lean back a bit, and just push a little bit. But some people almost lost some teeth messing out, myself included.
Yeah, it was definitely a challenge, and I think we'd run hard because it was such a competitive race and there's a lot on the line. And if you run hard, like it is a trade-off, it's hard to generate enough power to get out there at the crucial finish line. So it's going to be a difficult challenge to decide how much to recover or save for that, especially when you don't really, how can you remember what it was like exactly a year ago? And if you've never done it before, then it's totally new. So it's going to be interesting to watch the finish.
I think, as Chris say, there's a lot of technique to it. It's different from a ramp wall.
Yeah,
like you've just got to get the stride and get yourself up there. I think, and don't be afraid to take it a second attempt as well, because you might figure it out on the first time, get up the second time, and you've just saved yourself 30 burpees. Equally, it's going to be interesting, that decision, that if someone has gone to burpees, do you just stick or twist? Do you keep trying to get up the travelator, or do you jump into burpees because you don't want to lose any positions behind you, kind of thing? That's going to be an interesting element.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of mind games, and even sort of getting off the travelator, like at the top onto the bit that's not moving. Sometimes you underestimate when to do that, and you think you're there, and then you get your heart broken right at the top.
Another thing to point out with the course, the depth slide is in currently. So there will be a decision on the depth slide. The team are aware of how it impacted the race last year, because it was so cold last year. So if it's good weather, it will be in, and there'll be a decision if it's bad weather potentially to take out.
I mean, I'd quite like if you did a bit like a Tartan Warrior idea to it, and had the option to take the plunge or have a penalty sort of run loop. I would love that option, because that swim is longer. You'll be in the water longer. You'll be submerged from the slide itself. That could really play a key part on it. So I'd favour that.
Yeah. No, it will be a decision that made whether to keep it on the course or not. But depth slide nuclear, it's such a classic obstacle that if we've got a good day, it will be such a shame not to include it in the race.
We're not going to have a good day. It's Great Britain. It's cold. We've said this.
The water temperature is pretty consistent either way.
Yeah, but
it's gonna be it.
It's British weather.
Last year was the only May race, only rush race where that depth slide was an impact. Let's be positive. The weather's going to be good.
Yeah, and we're going to enjoy the death slide. Want to have a great photo.
Guns out, isn't it? Is that right? Are we getting guns out?
Yeah, surely the photographers will be there.
I've been working on my guns. They're even bigger than ever.
Normally pencil dive for Becky, I think.
Pencil or my star or my straddle.
It's the star. I've seen the star.
Collection. What would you like to request? I'll ask the internet.
I fancy something. You should do something different, Becky. You're a gymnast. Okay. What can you pull out the bag?
Yeah, well, I'm not going to.
Let's have a Who's Hot poll on the internet.
Okay.
And see what people want Becky to pull out on the death slide, because it's going to be in there.
All busted.
Or maybe as part of your second slide. We don't want to impact your race, but maybe if you go down a second time, we'll have to do. Maybe get you do YMCA, so you're going down 4 times.
Multiple camera shots.
Anyway, is there any other water bits? Because there's the aquaphobia area of the course, James. I'm just looking at the obstacle list that we've got. If you've entered the race already, you've got the rules and obstacle list, and I think we put it on the internet.
So aquaphobia isn't in this year.
Yes.
It's not.
So you've got.
What the mud? So the mud section after you get out of aquaphobia, is that in as well?
No. So Ebenezer's not in.
This is going to be a clean. In the way that it sounds, it's going to be a cleaner race than we've had before.
Yes, cleaner.
And that means
those first obstacles, the really muddy ones, that's a different kind of stride. So is it going to be more the running? Is it going to be more fast paced off those obstacles, not having them in?
It will make a difference, but we all know what nuclear is like to run in. It's
Yeah.
it's not a straightforward, especially if there's been some rain. It's going to be a tough one in terms of the legs on the terrain. Absolutely.
Yeah, there's also a few carries towards the start, isn't there? The wreck bag carry, the missile carry, the chain drag. Do we pick
I
up
love that chain drag.
the handbags at some point? And that will spread things out at the start.
There's just a real nice balance of obstacles. You've got the full spectrum of different challenges from an obstacle perspective. And you've got even a bit of accuracy in the axe throw. Yeah.
And the rule on that one is you can repeat it. You repeat it until you hit it.
Correct.
Doesn't have to stay in. But I think there'll be strong motivation as well. You know, if it isn't as wet in terms of mandatory obstacles, but if you fall off the spinning monkeys or you fall off the kingfisher, you get wet. So that's kind of a good motivation, as well as the 30 burpees to try your hardest, and not, you know, you're going to have a genuine attempt. So your genuine attempt means you'll either get wet or you complete the obstacle. You can't have I started, I went back to the ground kind of thing.
Full time.
James, I'm conscious you have to leave us very soon. But thank you very much for joining us as race director for Nuclear Challenge Cup. Any last words of advice, any tips, anything that you just want to leave the team with before you jet off on your private jet to the next obstacle meeting?
Yeah, Air Force One and all that. I'm just very jealous. I would be racing if I didn't have an injury. I think if you've never tried Nuclear Challenge Cup, come and get involved. There's every type of obstacle to challenge you, and it's just such a fun race as well. It's going to be very interesting to see who comes out on top. I think it's it really is a race that kind of tests everything, and I'm excited. I might not be able to listen in to all your top tips. I'm going to have to wait for the podcast, but interested to see who you pick.
Me too. Especially now. I wish he was on here longer so I could get a bit more because I know you've probably got things that you're not going to let out, and there's probably some bits that we don't know just yet, and it's going to really play key to who's going to be on top. I think there's so much that could go on in this race.
Thanks, James.
It's an all-rounder technical race is how I would summarize it. Yeah, but no, looking forward to seeing everyone down there on May 12th.
Brilliant. James, thank you very much. Thanks for joining us.
See you later, dude.
Chat soon.
So I think there are so many more things we could say about the obstacles. But do I keep them to myself? Or do I share them with my friends?
Becky, you should share so much, because you've got quite a bit of experience with this one and a few podiums as well. So I could do with hearing a few tips.
Well, I mean, what we learned from the last race in the series was don't underestimate the cold weather, the cold water. So, you know, see how it goes, but come prepared. Quite often people do wear neoprene socks, have neoprene gloves, wear a neoprene vest or a neoprene hat, but I don't think we're going to be, you know, there's been steps that have been made to kind of reduce that need, but get your kit out if you have it. Don't have to go buy loads of stuff. I'm not suggesting that. But just kind of think about it a little bit more, because people were underestimating it last year and in the last UKOCR series race this year. So I guess that's a thing. The single attempt obstacles, like, they will be signposted sort of right there, but you have to know that it's single attempt. Like, it's your responsibility to know that. And again, I've said it before, you should just be trying your best the first time anyway. But sometimes people really do switch on more if they understand the consequences. So those ones, just to kind of highlight them and maybe give you some tips. There is a new obstacle, actually. This is not a single attempt obstacle, but the one that was named by the audience, 'Z. 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 I would say just be careful of bashing yourself on that one a little bit. I think people could underestimate the gorilla bars, especially because they're quite narrow bars and they're quite wide in terms of between the gap between them, quite long too. I think, I can't remember, I usually count them when I'm doing it, maybe like 20 bars, and it's quite high off the ground. So when you kind of slip off, you are kind of falling. So just be careful. I think somebody actually hurt their elbow there last year. But if you have wet hands, that's going to be a thing. I know people like to think about wearing different kinds of gloves, like those kind of workman kind of gloves, but have good grip. But of course, they make your hands colder, which also makes it hard to grip. So you've got to have some kind of strategy to have the best case scenario for yourself and knowing your body. But sometimes when I wear gloves, especially on some of like the Taurus grips, I actually might find it harder because it's almost too grippy, then my hand comes out the glove or something else goes wrong or gets stuck in a grip. The weaver, people have made mistakes on that before because you have to go like up and over.
Especially nuclear one, because it is so slippery
Metal.
because it's metal, yeah. So you can fall off at the last run just by going on that.
Yeah. And make sure you're crossing the lines and stuff. There's some pictures in the rule book. Make sure you look at the whole rule book. That's what it's there for. But you can't like put your feet on the edge of the table, the rope, whatever. You've got to complete it. There's signs about how to hold on to some of the holds and everything. I think there's quite a few like drags and stuff as well, and obstacles that have been there for a little while. Like even that hang tough one, watch your head when you're coming out of the water there. Like the obstacle sometimes hangs quite far down into the dip. A lot of people underestimate the minions.
Oh,
They look a bit different now.
Do you know what, Becky? I think Minions is one of the not one of the hardest. It's just a pain in the arse. You think you can grip it or put your feet on the bottom of that ball and it just moves around and it's just like.
Have a look at the picture now in the book.
Does it give tips in the picture?
Well, it looks different to what you're thinking of.
Does it?
Yeah.
Do share because I can't use.
Okay, well, in the picture, but I don't know whether this. I assume the picture now represents it, but the pictures aren't always 100% accurate. But it's not on the water now.
Oh.
It's on the ground with a frame.
I can imagine though that's not going to change it too much.
No.
Will's doing some magic here, and he's going to get a picture up for us.
And that sort of takes you into spinning monkeys, and I think a couple people had the same issue in Tartan Warrior. Sometimes you can get a bit stuck if you don't have the right kind of momentum. And there's, like 5 of those, I think, spinning monkeys in a row, which means there's quite a few gaps and you have to get quite a lot of momentum going.
Annoyingly, they are usually covered in mud.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we're racing on the Sunday, so they're going to have people going over the spinning monkeys beforehand,
probably putting their legs up or something.
Yeah, so no, it's dangerous as well. So they are very tricky. Will has got a picture of the Minions.
Mm-hmm. And the Kingfisher, go on.
Yeah, sorry, they are not over water anymore, and it doesn't look like the balls are attached to the rope.
No. So basically, you just look at the ropes.
Yeah. And I suppose the balls, but that could catch you out. So if you try and probably use your feet everyone should check this out in the rule book, but if you put your feet on those balls to try and stabilize yourself, they could go all over the place. Yeah.
Yep. So the failure points are coming off the rig, touching the ground to gain advantage, using the bars that like the ropes are hanging off of, going back to the start if you've already come off the ground, or like finishing on the floor and then falling backwards. That also doesn't count. But you can have another go at that one, I think. And then it's 30 burpees if you decide you can't do it, because it's quite hard work. Similarly, Kingfisher, that is also multi-attempt. And we're not walking on top of it. We're going underneath. So you're doing it like monkey bars, because occasionally we've gone over the top when it's been lower. And those gaps are quite large in terms of the height gain on the monkey bars. I think it's a really fun obstacle because of like the kind of bit of bounce to it towards the end. And then the benefit of completing it is that you don't fall into the water. You can land on the ground, the other side of this like arched monkey bar. But it is a hard obstacle. And if you
It is
if
hard,
not,
but obscure. But was it Cameron Young? Oh my God! Again, was it
yeah,
the 3K?
yeah,
And he just flew across it. Like, oh my
yeah,
God, that's amazing.
Yeah, that boy's got some skills.
yeah.
Oh,
Alex as well. Alex Young, very good across this part of the course from all the wild forest training.
Yeah, he spends too much time down there. I think they've got like digs there somewhere or something.
So the Taurus rig is before the death slide. If the death slide's in, I think I would just act as if the death slide's in if I was you. But it's the Taurus rig is before.
So where do we reckon this Toro's rig's going to be placed? Because obviously it's just the
Okay.
attachments that they're going to be using, but it's going to be on a rig that the Nuclear have used before.
Yeah.
So
So if
where?
you've been there before, and you go to the car park at Wild Forest, and you go down the hill away from the car park, there's like a path down the road. You're going past like Stairway to Heaven called Phoenix Rising, and you go all the way down to the bottom. There's like a ditch before the hill goes up into the field the other side. And at the bottom there's a really big structure, and there'll be
Scaffolding.
probably 4 lanes on the end with Taurus attachments. That's where they have been since they've been kind of set up for the UKOCR race. There's extra lanes, but there's not enough Taurus attachments to use all the lanes. So you probably run past some of them, not use some of them, but then would use the Taurus attachments.
And they're all going to be the same level, I guess. It doesn't say anything about them in like a high to low rig or anything like that. So
they're all suspended from the same height, but the straps might be different heights.
oh, so it could have a little bit. See, that's it. Are we going to get some videos of any of these? Do you know? It really would really help to get some sort of idea of how to tackle the obstacles.
Yeah, in the past, Challenge Cup has made videos, and Laura Roberts has presented those videos in like the week before with the actual configuration or nearly the same configuration to help. But I'm not sure if that's the case this year. But you can get an idea for some of them from the recent
Previous
UK
videos, yeah.
race, any footage from that. And the general race. Challenge Cup has got some videos on YouTube and the Nuclear website, believe. Yes, the low rig is very low and quite long, and there is another rig, the coat hanger, which is close towards the end, like sort of the last Challenge Cup obstacle. I think that's actually pretty difficult because it's like a mid height and it's sort of on like a wide pyramid. It's basically hanging off a weaver.
Yeah.
And it's sort of the height where you could touch the ground if you just had your body too long, kind of thing. So you have to watch out for your feet and make sure you're going over the start and finish things. I think coat hanger could catch some people out. Sometimes they use those really fat ropes in it as well, and some of those obstacles, which are actually quite hard to sort of get your feet around, or they might
not
have those on the gorilla bars. And actually last year, that's where I overtook Fede and Andrea, was on the gorilla bars, because we did the long rig and then straight into the other gorilla bar obstacle. It looks like it goes gorilla bars 2 and then gorilla bars 1. I'm not sure, but it could be the long one after the short one, which might be easier.
Yep,
because
it's
you don't blow up so much from the long one.
2 then 1.
Yeah, we'll see. Because if you're running in from the balance beam, you're probably ending up next to the long rig, but we'll see where the direction goes. But it was tricky to do the spinning one, which is on the monkey bars. It's quite low to the ground. It was quite hard to do that. I was really gritting my teeth at the end of that one to complete it, having done the really long rig where you go sort of the traverse bar rope up to the monkey bars and then across the green net. Yes, you can't put your feet up on that one because it's like a high rig, but you can put your feet on the rope.
It really is a sort of a section that does test the grip, and it is grip intense.
And then you run up the hill and do the low rig.
Yeah.
Do a rope climb, and I think that's when I pulled away from Andrea, because we were kind of staying together for a bit, because it was just so much energy, because that rope climb is actually kind of bouncy because it's suspended on a wire, and it's quite high in the forest. So I would say it's a hard rope climb, unless they're using, yeah, it is that rope climb. They've got a picture of the old rope climb. It's not that rope climb, I don't think. That one did catch people out a few years ago though, because it was so muddy. Be the case here. And then that high rig, I reckon there could be a pretty tricky combination on there if Laura gets her way, but we'll see. And then Stairway to Heaven.
God, Stairway to Heaven.
You can use the middle bar at the top, so we're still doing the kind of the easier version of the Stairway to Heaven, but it is still a challenge, especially with wet fingers.
This one here has caught many people out for many years. Like this was one of them obstacles. Stairway to Heaven back in the day was the obstacle that caught probably a majority of people out here in the in the World Championships. And it was one of those ones that people like, this was so difficult. Nowadays we're just flying through it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's got a bit of a nostalgic sort of element to that obstacle. It's kind of like the one that everyone couldn't do, but now overcame. Yeah. So it's like a Stairway to Glory now. So
yeah. And you have to make sure you finish it though, because sometimes you can get up and get across the top and then still not complete it, because you have to come back down and land on the platform, the opposite side. And of course the platform is wider than kind of the step which you're hanging from. So you have to sort of use your abs a bit and everything to make sure you really do complete it. Because if not, you're doing a wreck bag carry penalty.
Was that the penalty?
Yeah, so it's not 30s there, it's a wreck bag carry.
And that's good because they've got quite a big field there. So you can see your competitors racing. Anyone who's failed it, you can see them carrying that rep bag, and you can capitalize on that mistake.
A bit uphill as well, uphill to the coat hanger. That's where you've really got to dig in, and then there's a balance bit, so you can start pushing, but you've got to balance on the battering ram and get through the Mud Queen rings. It's like you bomb it down the hill over the high walls. I remember being quite cold at that point and being like, I cannot see what's happening on top of this really high wall, and then like across the kind of obstacles like the waffle and the swing to get back across the fields. The obstacles were new last year, I think. So you climb over those, and the Rolos are actually, like, you really have to concentrate on those. You're sort of shuffling along, a bit like in the picture is usually the go-to technique before doing like the Dragon's Back one called Isotope. The gap's much smaller than like OCR World, like the OCR WC. And then you guys glide down a pole. I think sometimes there's some extra slides, aren't there? The Ridge of Revenge can sometimes be a bit tricky. It's kind of on the side of a hill a tiny bit.
Yeah.
I'm really tired. And if there is no rope, then you have to put a lot of effort in.
It's quite funny, this last section, because it goes sort of in and out of the same bit. You kind of get the feeling that the race is going to end anytime.
Yeah, you're nearly there.
But it just sort of like prolongs along a little bit, and then you've got to do a couple more obstacles, and it's like, where do you burn that match to try and get your position? Because you can run hard and then burn out so quickly on that last section, because you just feel as if you're going to finish so quick, but you're not.
Until you sprint up the travelator.
And then hopefully that's it.
And then launch yourself over the line, which is also kind of a little bit uphill, maybe 50 more meters. And press and hit the gong. If you're not in a head-to-head battle, hit the gong to celebrate your finish. Yeah. Anyway, let's think about some predictions.
The Gong of Glory. Right. Thanks, guys. Let's just very quickly talk about last year's winners. We had first in male, first place, Morgan Maxwell. Second place, Daniel Tickham. And in third place, Jason Brunnock. In the female, we have our very own Becky Neal, followed by Federica Di Caria. And then in third place, Louise Ferriman. We also, just to recap, the current top places of the top three of the UKOCR series. Of course, this is the third. This is going to be the third race. We currently have Karen in first place, Josie in second place, followed by Shai. And then in the men's, we have Russell Walsh, Mo, and followed by Ricky in third place. Let's talk about lineups. Who wants to take that first?
Well, I know a little bit from our friendly athletes in the WhatsApp groups about who said that they think they are doing it and who's definitely not doing it. But we don't have a full start list just yet. There are some some people who are members of the local teams. So me and Fede and Imi are all entered from Phoenix.
Tony.
That's 3 people, and there are 3 positions in the elite team, but that would be very difficult to execute. I don't know if we've ever had a whole team get a whole podium before in any race, so it's definitely difficult to make that happen. I think anything can happen in this race. Imi was also saying about the M25 being closed, which maybe will affect some people, but I'll talk to you about that, Imi. So Karen is, of course, highly ranked at the moment. I feel like she's going to be good at this race.
I do
She's going
too.
to run on this terrain really well. Water does not phase her. She's technical. She can do some strong carries. I would probably bet Karen. Fede, Karen, Imi. I mean, Tamar won the UKOCR series on this course, and she spent a lot of time training here, and a lot of time training recently. Let me just check whether I know whether she's going. I don't know if I do, but I don't see why she wouldn't. Oh, hang on, I do know. She's doing 1 lap of this Challenge Cup, but really she wants to do the Oblivion race. So she's going to keep running afterwards. So she might not be running at 100%, although I don't know how you hold back. I think she'll probably just hang on afterwards. So Tamar is definitely going to be in the mix. She knows this course really, really well and is excellent across all of these disciplines that we've been talking about. So I think it's really close. Like Imi, Tamar, Karen, and Fede, and in fact Shai are probably all very similar athletes at this course. I think Imi and Shai have the least experience at nuclear. And then I don't really feel like I fit into the same kind of all-rounder category as those ladies do. But we've also got Pip, Emma, Laura Hayward, and a few other people attending.
Yeah, it's pretty much most of the women, isn't it?
I expect there's a lot more, but we don't have the list.
Yeah, it's annoying that we don't have the list, but I mean, even on the men's side, we've got the usual faces coming up. So we got Gavin Hogarth, which should imply that a lot of the guys from Scotland are coming down. There's not many places that Gavin goes that the rest of the Tartan Warrior family doesn't. So on that sort of side of things, you probably see him. We've got Richard Jarvis turning up, Matt Roberts turning up on the pole, Andy D, Das said, Das Pumpkin. Why is it?
Is that your nickname, Becky? Is that your nickname?
Pumpkin. Oh, so from now on, Das is only going to be called Pumpkin. Great. Well done, Becky. He's going to love that. Darren Martin, my buddy's coming down. Russell Walsh, he's coming down. He might be staying in a little tiny bed with me if he really wants to. Alex is going to be there. Alex is having a really strong performance this year. This is his home turf, so he's going to be, I reckon Alex is probably going to be the person to watch out for most, just because he trains at Wild Forest. He's looking super strong this year. This is going to be the race that he wants to put in the effort before Euros, I'd imagine. So I think his performance is going to show. You've got Dave Peters coming down, bringing all of Rumble more than likely. I did see Ryan Ibbetson's name on the start list or the going, and this is his course as well. And Ryan Ibbetson is a person that this course does well at. Well, he does well at everything he just puts his mind to. But it's going to be good to see him there. And Tony Leary is going to be coming as well. So and we should have quite a few good age group battles going on.
Yeah, definitely. There's podiums for age group too. So that'll be exciting. The only thing though is with some names missing because some people are focusing, as we know from Accountability Corner, on different series, including Spartan Race Series, which is the day before, and it's the day before 21k of Spartan racing, sort of the other side of London, isn't it? So there'll be people choosing to do both. There'll be people choosing to do one. So there's people not racing here, people racing here fresh, and people racing here very tired. And that probably will have influence. So like Fede, being a Spartan Pro, is going to be doing both. You can't really avoid that. Whereas, other people might not be. But if people are traveling from Scotland, maybe they are traveling to do both because you might as well do 2 races whilst you're in London. So I think that's going to come into it a little bit more, and we're not going to see Mo, right, because he's doing
No, that's right. Most
not only
of
that Darren's doing only this, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. But then I mean, you know what people are like. They don't tell us what they're going to do for the race. They never say they're going to come to the race. So they probably know who's focusing on what now, because people don't say it. But if you look at what they're doing, and sometimes even their training, it shows what they're training for. So, you know, this is also a good opportunity to know, they're going to be focusing on Spartan.
Yeah.
I'm going to come and do this race, get some extra points. And,
like Libby's probably focusing on Spartan, Libby Joyce.
Yeah. But it would be a good one to make some points for her. So that's got to be in the back of her head.
National trials, if you want to represent the UK in the World Championships elite, which is actually pretty contentious, like we've seen the top 10 in the last race was really competitive. To get in the top 3, to be chosen to be elite at the Worlds, you have to prove it. And this is the race where you do that. That's where you're guaranteed if you're in the top 3. So this is the one to attend for that purpose as well.
Yeah.
Predictions?
So with all that being said, give us your predictions.
Ooh. What, top 3?
Yes.
I'm gonna give it this out, right? And I'm gonna get this spot on this time.
Oh, really?
Because I've been rubbing my crystal ball, right? And I'm gonna go with, on the women's. I wish Imi would have told me if she's definitely coming or not, because that's annoying. But I'm gonna go with Karen, right? Karen is not gonna let me down on this one. She's gonna win. Then Becky.
Okay.
So don't come third.
Or fourth.
Or fourth. And then I'm going to say on the women's, because it's going to be a horrible, cold, miserable, nasty day, that Louise is going to get third.
Oh, yes. Well, that's what happened last year.
Yeah. And I'm praying for some horrible weather.
Yeah. I didn't see her on the list, but she must be there.
Do you want to go for the women's, Becky?
Oh, well, this is hard. And I feel like I want to do something different to you as well, just to make it exciting. I don't know. I think Fede has all the ingredients to do it. I know I back her all the time. I know she'll be doing Spartan.
That's the trouble.
Yeah.
It's a hilly course. It's a beast and it's hilly. It's going to take a lot.
But like, if everyone's doing it, then it doesn't make any difference, really. And she's good at racing 2 days in a row. So, like, I'm putting her in the top 3. Karen and I think Imi. I think we'll find a way for Imi to get there. And even though she's not done it before, just like when I watched her for the first time at Euros, she just did everything without realizing that it was meant to be hard. And was like, oh, this thing? Sure.
She's quite an athlete.
Yeah. And she's strong enough to take up that, the ground really well. And she's done some longer races now. She's not going to get as cold, I don't think. I
don't think that's going to be the issue of her turning up. I'm just hoping she's going to be smart.
She might not have done Spartan. I don't know. And then Tamar, I haven't put her in the top because she's
doing Oblivion. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I might be in the mix.
You'd be second, Becky.
I'm going to be first. Thank you.
Oh, well.
I haven't entered.
That's really like.
And men's, Becky. Let's start with you. Top 3.
Oh. Well, like Alex Young has got so much experience in this course. I don't know what it's like at the start of part of the race, but the second half of the race, I think he'll do really well. But I don't know whether, in all the races we've seen so far, he's not been quite in that top bit. Whereas, of course, Dan Titcombe will be out there. And I think last year when he had his hurt foot, and so he didn't.
He just come back, yeah.
Yeah,
his first race back.
But he still did really well despite the cold, and of course, like Tom Tweddle dropped out because of the cold and his injuries and things. So I think Dan is probably number 1. Gavin is pretty strong on this kind of course too, and Darren will of course be targeting this. So I think if Darren does well in this race, he'll feel excellent. But Russell Walsh has said yes, so we're probably going to see a Dan versus Russell race again. I'm going to go with Gavin in third.
Oh,
Wow.
But there's also some people from Phoenix that aren't on this list that I think should be on the list.
that's true. There are a lot of names missing, and we always get this. Luckily, we sort of know some people coming for sure. But
That's why we run the race. That's why we run the race.
what did
Chris,
Becky
top
do?
3.
So you did Dan first, Russell second.
Yes.
Yes, then Gavin.
Right. So I'm just going to flip that round.
Yeah.
just because.
For fun.
Right. And then for third place, I'm going to pick. You know what? I'm going to pick Finn.
Oh.
Do you know what? I just think he's got
Yeah.
it.
Is
I
he
think
on the
he's
list?
got it.
I didn't look at him.
I'm taking the gamble.
Yeah,
I
he's
didn't see him
been.
on the list.
Yeah. Well, he's probably not on WhatsApp. That's probably why, because he's a child.
Oh yeah, because I tried contacting him to talk about other stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Okay, yeah. Finley,
no, you can't change.
Jason Brannock, that's us.
The thing is,
Come
Finley's
on, Gav.
running faster than these key players now,
He is.
and this is a long course, but it's dense. It's got a lot of things. The carries aren't going to make much of an impact, so I'd love to see Finn make his breakout race at this race, the one that really, really cements him as an athlete in this country.
Yeah, and with the carries at the start, there's time to get it back as well. I mean, there's a few spattered here and there, but with the, everyone gets kind of caught up at the start. Yeah,
And,
I don't know.
And quickly, I'm just going to say, after that, someone down the pack, it'll be me, Darren.
We've got that. We'll record that. We'll snip it for later. Guys, thank you very much for joining me for the Nuclear Challenge Cup preview race. Just a quick plea from UKOCR. If you're around and you'd like to rabbit, we would love to hear from you to help rabbit for the race. So if you'd like to rabbit, please speak to someone at UKOCR either through Facebook or Instagram. This has been the Nuclear Challenge Cup preview. This is the third race in the UKOCR series. If you haven't already and you'd like to sign up, you can go to nuclear-races.co.uk. The price is £99 plus fees. My thanks, as always, to the support of British Obstacle Sports. You can follow them at British Obstacle Sports. Thanks to my 2 elite races. We have Chris Shipley. You can follow him on Instagram at Obstacle Race Dude, and Becky Neal at The Runner Bean UK. Thank you once again for listening. This has been the Nuclear Races Challenge Cup preview for the UKOCR series, and we will speak to you in the next one. Bye.
Bye. We also make sure for Ricky, of course.
Ricky hasn't fully said if he's coming.
This is our time. You already know. I ain't gotta tell him why. Get your hands to the sky. Get your hands to the sky. Yeah. Ain't no glory for the faint of heart. We all stars, win or lose, we don't play the part. And when the going getting tough, I get to going hard. You bring your best and you know I'ma tear them apart. We been in survival, rival, I ain't got no time for anyone who ain't put in the work that I do. You ain't heard about us, think I'm gonna remind you. I've been out here doing what I say, it's what defines you. This is our time, hands to the sky. You already know, I ain't gotta tell them why. Hands to the sky, this is our time. You already know, I ain't gotta tell them why. This